So I'm actually reading on here, the trim part R22 allows you to adjust the volume of the sub-octave signal to be later mixed with the original signal. So that's cool. We can internally get that to, oh yeah, that's about right. And then we're good.
Welcome to episode 3, part 2 of The Joy of Soldering. Today we're going to be looking into the resistors for this project. That's pretty much it. And I've got some footage here of me playing around with the switch and trying to figure out where things go. But today, it's just resistors. Maybe we'll move on to capacitors later. Depends how much time we've got for this episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the joy of soldering.
Okay, so we should have 14 10k resistors in this pack. I assume they'll all be on one. Oh, this is cute. So while I'm looking at these, they've written handy little labels on them. So that says 2.2k. This is nice. I was expecting to have to pull up the data sheet online. Not the data sheet, the color charts that tell you how to read resistors, because I am honestly awful at that. Reading what resistors or what is the worst. So this should be R1, R2, R6. I'm just going to get a little bit of note paper so I can write that down, so I can then see on the board where they go. Because I've got a couple of pictures on screen. I've got it says bill of materials, and then I'll have a picture of the PCB. So if I'm looking, I can line that up a bit better. So 10k is R1, 2, 6, 7, 8. There you go, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 15. And also 16. And also 18, 19, and 20. And then for some reason R3 is just listed at the bottom. Oh, no, R3 isn't listed at the bottom because R3 takes the 100 ohm resistors, not the 10Ks. Now let's give this a try, hey? Now, that's the first resistor. I thought I'd already managed to lose one, and well, that makes sense. It's me. I'm great at losing things. I didn't want to have to dig through the bag of general parts that I'd ordered, because you know when you buy these kits, they all come in. They're all part of the same thing. It just makes it easier. I don't want to have to extract stuff from other places, because those are for other builds, you know. Let's just bend these legs over slightly to keep it in place. That's our first resistor. I'm going to put those all in place, and I'll come back to you. There we go. So this is all 14 of those resistors in place. I think I'm going to do that cheeky little trick with the tape again. I've never seen anybody do this before. It just kind of came into my head, and that seems like quite a good idea. I don't know why I've never tried it before, because I honestly really suck at keeping the legs and stuff in the bottom when doing circuits and stuff. Like, I'll very often find myself like soldering in, and then it won't be as deep as I expected, when using Vero board, and then I'll have to like solder it a bit more to kind of get the metal hot again, so that I can push it down a little deeper and then trim off the excess. And this just seems like a much better way of doing it. So henceforth, I'm going to try this out. Now, I think I said that I've never soldered to PCB before. I realised that that's actually untrue. When I used to be in the Scouts, so maybe I was around 10 years old at the time, one Christmas we built these little electronics kits that were like a little flashing Christmas tree that ran off an IC timer. And those were super fun. I remember we didn't have enough like stands for the soldering irons we had, so some of us were using mugs and things were getting hot, and yeah, it was good fun. Whoever thought of letting a room full of 10-year-olds have fun with soldering irons for an hour was a wonderful idiot. I actually found out not so long ago that my scoutmaster, although we don't really call them that anymore, archaic terminology right there, my old scout leader, he was really into electronic music back in the 80s, and him and his brother would build synthesizers with electronics kits and stuff like that, and so that's what got them all into it. My scout leader, he brought his brother in, and they all helped us to make these little timers. And yeah, I really remember that as being super fun. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was great. So being part of the Scouts was really good for me growing up. So I really enjoyed being a part of it. And for a time, I was also a Scout leader. I only did that for a year. While I was in my year off before I went to university. But it was really good. I was terrible at remembering all the kids' names. I think I used to call them all mate because it was easier. I don't know how some of my friends who are teachers do it. But yeah, it was fun. We went on a few camps. And yeah, I really love camping, so that was great. And yeah, I say all my best friends from being a young kid, I met them all through scouting. So I find the worst part about this is I've not really got a good set of wire cutters. So I mean, that'll probably be the next things on my order list, but let's get at it with these scissors. If they can get through an old man's toenails, I'm not an old man, but a generic old man's toenails, they will have no problem with this. There we go. That just gives us a little bit more space to work with as we're going in. Just like cutting down trees. So that we can get further in with the deforestation. I mean, I imagine this is probably just as bad for the environment as well. But I've never had anybody look into that. I've never had anybody look into that. I've never commissioned anybody to do anything. Like, yeah, I don't know. Let's just see. There's my Facebook Messenger going off. But yeah, what I'd like to do in today's session is just go over putting all of these resistors in. And actually, I don't think I quite explained why I would find a sub-octave useful. So let's chat about that while I'm deforesting. So I'm actually, well, I suppose nowadays I'm more of a guitarist than a bassist, just in terms of what I play more frequently. But I actually started out as a bass guitarist, and a sub-octave bass, it's just a really cool tone. So that'll be some use that I'll get out of this. But also, I think what really drew me into getting a sub-octave lately was I've been working on a track with a good friend of mine, and he was helping out with the mixing, which is something I can do, but I'm not the best. So while he actually played on the live recording, he offered to help out with the mixing as well. And the guitar solo in the piece was good. I was really happy with what I'd played. Interestingly, I nearly lost control of the guitar during the performance. It kind of felt like it was flying out from underneath me, and I could barely hold the notes. But I managed to keep it together, and that's why the solo works. But that's part of why it sounds, I think, really good, is because you can almost hear the desperation in my playing. But during the production, my friend, shout out to Jay Whitsey, he stuck a sub octave on it, and it sounded huge. And so I wanted something to be able to do this live, and I'd bid on a couple of sub octaves on eBay, hoping to pick them up cheap. I think one was by a company called Red Witch that I bid on. I didn't know anything about them, so I thought, hey, maybe nobody else does, and this won't go for too much money. Turns out they're quite expensive. So it didn't go for too much money compared to what it was, but it was more than I was prepared to pay. I think this kit cost me somewhere around €40, which I'm happy to pay that, because you can put a bit of time in doing this, save yourself a lot of money, and make lovely YouTube content. But yeah, I mentioned that solo. I will make sure that you can hear the audio for that. So that solo was from a song I wrote called Neglect, which was going to be on a live EP at some point. I've actually been working off and on the mix for that for about 2 years now. And yeah, it's partly because I can be a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my music, and it will never be ready to release. But mostly that I find that you've got to have the right motivation, at least for me, to be able to sit down and do long hours mixing. I can't just come to it at the end of the workday, because even though I enjoy doing it, I'll have spent most of my day in front of a computer anyway, and I don't want to spend more time sat in front of the PC or Mac. I actually use Logic to mix, so in front of the Mac. Right, here we go. So let's have a look at this. And this will be our first 14 resistors. It's not the tidiest. Will do. There are a few bumpy resistors there, but it's the first time I've done a kit like this, so I guess the more we do, the better we'll get. Je mehr, desto besser, as they say. Alright, so let's move on to the next set of resistors, which are two 100 ohm resistors. But yeah, so I think oh, there we go. Two 100 ohm resistors. But that piece of music hopefully will be available at some point. It was, I mean, it's not exactly the best gig I've played in my life, but it's a special one. It's, excuse me. It's the first one that featured just songs that I've written myself. Okay, so this is resistor number 3 and number 26. Yeah, the first one entirely of songs that were self-written, and also, you know, it was the very end of university, and I got to play it with two very close friends, and we kind of threw the band together for this performance in 2 rehearsals, and I think we did really well. And I think part of the reason why we did so well, I'm just going to bend the legs over and solder this one at a go. One at a go. I don't think that's a phrase that makes sense. But I'm just going to do this one now, rather than do them both and get the tape down. You know, I think part of the reason why we did so well off the back of 2 rehearsals is, instead of the bands I've been in before, where we practice and we practice and we practice and we practice, and we make everything perfect, it was built on a place of us all already knowing the songs, mostly because the 2 guys I played with were also my housemates, so they'd heard me play them enough. But just having chord sheets and being able to kind of just play a song, and they'd always sound slightly different each time we played it, but that's fine. I really enjoy that about making music, is the individual musician and the individual time and interpretation just kind of changes things. But I know certainly my friend that we had on drums, Larry, shout out again, we both played a lot of church music, and that was super common. We would get a chord sheet, and you got to keep up. And yeah, that's I find that really fun. Just just keep up, and it forces you to play in a particular way. It makes you, at least in the Anglican world that we were used to, is you're not playing too much. It's very much about sitting in the pocket, to a certain extent. Although you say sit in the pocket as if there's some sort of groove for you to follow, it's not. The way that music works, at least in our context, was it's something that's led entirely by vocal melody. And a friend of mine actually pointed it out when he wasn't used to church music, but he played at a wedding with me. He was the bass player for our little group that we put together. And he said, whenever I play music, and that's normally Motorhead or Black Sabbath or whatever, and we used to play in bands together, playing that sort of stuff when we were young teenagers. We would always follow the drums, but I've sat and played with you guys, and I realised the reason why I was going wrong in our first rehearsal is because I was trying to follow, well, A, an instrument that wasn't there, but B, it's not built from the ground up like with rock music, from drums, then to like guitar rhythms, then to lead guitars, then to vocals. It's built from vocal down to counter melody, down to chord, down to bass, and then down to drums. And it's a really strange way of playing if you're not used to it. But we got there. Although this was a song that was just pushed forwards from the guitar in this case. No, not necessarily neglect itself, but that whole gig was instead of having the drummer lead everything, you would have the frontman lead everything, and so you will use your body for cues, and like instead of like musical cues, you might move your arms in a particular way. You're playing conductor essentially, and it's fun. I really enjoy leading a band as leading a band as a musician rather than a conductor. However, let's just check on here. There's a comment on the next set of resistors. So we have three 10 mega ohm resistors: R4, R17, and R27. And the comment is R17, use if IC2 is not an LM833. Okay, so IC2 is LM833. Let me just check what we have in our box of parts. So we've got a TL072, cool, those are pretty normal. There's a TL074, which I think is two 072s stuck together. Yeah, and we've got an LM833 in this box, so we'll just use those three 10 mega ohms. Yeah, so that's 10 mega ohms. Found this here. Let's put the rest back into the bag in case we lose parts, which would not be good. I don't want to lose any parts, because I might cry if that happens. And while it's good to make sure you cry often, I mean, it's good to cry if you need to, rather than to hold it in. I don't want to do it on YouTube. Be a bit weird, right? Yeah, let's scroll back down, because we want R4, R17, and R27. I'm going to put these on, and I'll get back to you. Now, all of those resistors are in place. So one thing I am going to do before I continue is make my crocodile clips a little bit safer. I've noticed, I don't know if you can see just there, there's a tiny little scratch made in the back of the PCB. So I just want to wrap my crocodile clips in some electrical tape and hope that that kind of dampens it a little, makes it less sharp and cutty, because that would not be good if I completely ruin this that way. That looks a little better, and let's just do the top as well. It's like a muzzle for the crocodile clip, I guess. Or like, I don't know, I think I've seen it where like they put like pool noodles on elephants' trunks when they're in captivity. Well, not in captivity, but in the zoo. So kind of, if they start having an elephant fight, family dispute, they won't hurt each other because they've got their pool noodles on. So yeah, let's think of these as elephant's pool noodles. There you go, that's loads better. It's a bit wigglier, but whatever. Safety is important, guys. Okay, so that's all the 10 megaohms done. I'm wondering now what elephants would have family arguments about. I don't really know. Drop a comment if you think you know what elephants would argue about. I don't know, probably about punctuality, but who knows. Okay, so now we've got R5, which is a 1 meg resistor. I'm just keeping this down on paper, mostly so that I can see it on the screen and stuff, but also this is going to help me remember where I'm at, because I'm not very good at remembering which ones I've done and which ones I've not done. I need to keep lists, otherwise I forget stuff. Oh, there we go, 1 meg R5. So, this order took a long time to arrive, but I do rate Music Ding. This was good. And I've got a lot of parts that I'm going to use now in future. I bought a couple of kits, and then I just bought a load of potentiometers and potentiometer hats, I guess you call them, knobs, one or the other. So let's look for R5. Yeah, I just bought a load of parts, and it arrived. It was late, which is a shame because I was working on something for a friend's birthday, and none of the parts arrived in time. But hey, that's fine. He didn't mind so much. At least I hope he doesn't. Hopefully this episode will come out after he's received his gift, because I've kept it secret. I don't think he knows what I've made. I actually made the first prototype of the Marsden Even More drive, which is fun because it just has a bypass switch, allowing you to turn off the clipping diodes and just turn it into a clean boost, which is not a huge mod, but it could be useful. So I put it in. Right, that's R5. Let's get to R9, which is a 2.2K. I'm kind of having fun not stressing over the schematic here. I'm hoping to build an MXR Distortion Plus soon, which is a simple circuit, but I didn't order a PCB or anything. I had all the parts already. I just needed the one IC, so I ordered that, which I think it was a TL072 op amp. I ordered one of those, and I'll just make it onto VeraBoard because VeraBoard is good. And I've still got loads of VeraBoard left over from university when I had to chop off ends of things, so it'd be good to get it used. So R21 is a 4.7K, which I've got here because I noticed that I need it next. R21. It always confuses me that they do like 4K7. I mean, it doesn't confuse me, it kind of makes sense, but I'd still prefer a decimal point. Right, here we go, R7, 2.7K, or 4.7K, in R21. Now we've got 3 47Ks now, which are 23, 24 and 25. always wonder as well how people design PCBs like this. Is there some software that automatically puts one together for you? I mean, there probably is now, but I would never know how to put these together in a nice way. I still think it's crazy sometimes that I do this to make music. I think it's pretty cool the way that we've applied all of this. I like to think of music sometimes as just applied mathematics, which always makes me happy that we can use all of this crazy technological stuff and build synthesizers and effects. And yeah, a lot of my understanding of music comes from a place of maths and patterns, and so to be able to make something like this, which is crazy scientific, I find super fun. And that's not to say that there isn't science in traditional instruments, because obviously there is, and there's a huge art and science and technique required to construct good acoustic instruments, and even electric instruments still require many of those same skills. And the same as playing. It's not to devalue anything from the classical world at all. And there's a lot that modern musicians can and do learn from studying all the styles. Okay, so now we've got three 100Ks, which are 14, 28 and 29. Yeah, that's something that I've actually found a lot of fun lately, has been playing playing more traditional stuff. Well, not traditional, I'd say, more classical music. What I do really like is a lot of the more, I guess you'd say, ambient piano pieces, so just like romantic and late romantic stuff. Particularly, I do really like Chopin and Eric Satie, and there were a couple of projects that I've worked on. One was that I've been arranging Chopin's Prelude in E minor for a three-piece rock band, which might seem a little like cultural appropriation, but it's been fun, and it forces me to do a lot with my guitar that I wouldn't normally, such as read from sheet music. I can read sheet music, but I can sight read slowly in treble clef. But yeah, I know a lot of guitarists don't read it at all, but that's also fine. It's the end result that I think is what's most important. Although I find it very easy. I find it better when people do, because you've got a shared vocabulary there, and I can't 100% communicate with people in a classical music realm, but there was some common vocabulary, which is helpful, and particularly when I was playing in a rock band of musicians that all had some ability with music theory. We had things that we could go off. We could tell people to do particular things, and we'd know what each other meant. And I remember a funny example of that, at least, was when I had the idea to use metric modulation, but I'd never heard of metric modulation before. So I was saying, hey, can we try it where, say, you go into triplets, but the triplet beat becomes the new pace of 4/4, and everybody sort of looked at me like, "What are you trying to explain here? I don't really get what you're saying." So we abandoned the idea. But I recently spoke to the drummer from the band that I suggested that to, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we've sorry I didn't understand. We've definitely applied this in our current band." So yeah, it's helpful to have shared vocabulary. But as well as Chopin's Prelude in E minor, I've also been playing around with something called We Only Pushed Buttons. And one of my favourite instruments is the Fender Rhodes piano. I just think it sounds beautiful, and I often hear so things on the more ambient side of piano playing that I thought, man, that would sound amazing on a Fender Rhodes. And so I did a bit of Googling, and I was like, oh, I cannot find a recording of somebody playing this on Fender Rhodes. So then I thought, well, why not do it myself? I've got some good Fender Rhodes patches on my computer. I can't play piano well enough to play those pieces yet, so I'll ask some friends who can. And I've been prepping a few of Chopin's pieces, a few of Eric Satie's pieces, and other things as I find them and enjoy them. I think there's some Debussy I was thinking of using as well, and running them through a Fender Rhodes. I would get people to send me their MIDI information, and I would convert that to audio through a virtual instrument, which I would then process in various ways to improve the ambience, if you will. So we've got a couple more resistors now, and that's the last two. The 82 kilo ohms going in the positions of R30 and R31. So yeah, so the idea of that We Only Pushed Buttons is that nobody would actually make music at any stage. There would be a set of processing rules that I'd follow, which I would check with music. But there wouldn't be any actual music until the product is bounced from the digital audio workstation. So yeah, technically nobody made a sound in the production of the whole record, which I just find to be quite an interesting idea. Because I know that, or at least I've heard that when the piano was first invented, that other musicians complained that it was just people pushing buttons. And it's not true performance. So it'd be interesting when I know that there's often complaints that electronic music is like that it's just people pushing buttons. And it can be, don't get me wrong, like you could rock up to the club and just hit play. But people would know. There's an art to performing music like that. And I've seen some amazing electronic artists before. And it's not just pushing buttons. It's a whole different skill set. And one that people can learn from. Whoops. Right, I've just bridged a connection there, so let me just fix that. That was a rather crude way of doing that, but it worked. Now this was the one that we'd accidentally soldered. So let's just pop this upright. And what I'll do is I'll heat and melt this from the underside while I come in and push from the top. And what I'll do just to help out is I'll shorten one of these legs just a little so that I can get the top leg in bottom leg. Shorten that just a little more. There we go. This is proving to be quite tricky. I can't get a good hold. So what I'll do, I'm just going to take a crocodile clip, place that around the resistor, and use that to hold it into place. And almost. We were getting there, but not quite. You know, I could probably do this with a solder sucker and just take all the solder out. No, I have decided to be awkward and do it this way. Now, let's just try going from the top because it feels like I've just pushed it through to the other side. Now, if this looks done, it's probably because it is done. But, you know, just because I have a couple of letters after my name in a piece of paper doesn't mean I'm not stupid. Believe me, I'm pretty stupid. Sometimes. Okay. Okay, so sorry for that delay. That was my neighbour. I collected a parcel for him. It was actually kind of cheeky because I met my neighbours in my first couple of weeks here and promptly forgot their names. And while I've been living here for around 3 weeks now, I figured I've gotten past the point of it being fun. Okay, we've got this, yes. I'm just going to moisten that solder a little bit more so I can push it all the way through. So I kept hold of his packet so that he would come down or come to my apartment so that I could make sure I knew what his name was. And it worked. And I know which one's Michael and which one's the other dude that I've forgotten the name of, so I just need to wait until his packet comes through. And if he gets a packet that I have to collect, that is. And if that's the case, then I will figure out what his name is as well. I think that was very cunning. Although the issue is, like, these guys, they know my name because it's on my doorbell. And I'm the one new guy. But their names aren't on their doorbells. And while there's two guys that I was confused between, But yeah, that's all of our resistors in place now. Now I could try a little harder to get that exactly in place, but that's fine. So all I'll do now is place this trim pot exactly in, this one that we found before, and once that trim pot is in place, we're good. Just remove this. Yeah, and with all of the okay, for the trim pot I'm going to use the electrical tape again. Yeah, and with that done, we've got all of our resistors in place. That means that I can get some more done tomorrow. Because tomorrow is Sunday, which means quiet projects only, please. Hopefully tomorrow I'll have my negative corona result back as well, which means I can go outdoors again, which will be good because I'm out of beer and I'm out of snacks. So I do very much need to leave the house. So there we are, that is all of our resistors in place. So this is what we look like so far. Thanks for joining me for episode
3.
The second section of episode
3.
of The Joy of Soldering, where we have made the first part of our U-boat sub-octave from a kit I bought from Music Ding. And we put in all of the resistors, including the trim pot, which is up at the top. And we put in all of these nice little car parks for our ICs. If anybody knows what they're called, drop a link in the comments because I need to buy more of these. And I can't buy more if I don't know what they're called. So I'll catch you guys next time. It sounded like I said next time. I'll catch you guys next time.
The joy of soldering.